Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. We are one of the most watched and listened to podcasts that deal with addiction and recovery. I guess a lot of people are interested in that topic.
Yeah, it's almost like there's more than one addict in the world.
You think? I don't know. Yeah, well, we're all three of us are in recovery, and what we hope to do is impart hope to people who are dealing with themselves dealing with the issue or dealing with a loved one who has the issue of substance use abuse, and to show that there's always hope. Doesn't matter how old you are, like me, I'm an old fart, or Nicole, she's young.
No.
You'd call yourself middle-aged, but you're not. She's in her 30s.
I was going to say definitely middle-aged.
Anyway, I'm your host, Randall Carlisle. Nicole Slack is our co-host. And our guest is?
Rosa Martinez.
Rosa Martinez. And you're in recovery, too.
I'm in recovery, too.
What would you, I'm not trying to find out your age. Would you call yourself young, middle-aged?
Millennial? Gen Z? I think we're Gen X in order. Oh. So if you're in your 30s, I'm just about 40. I'm 41. Okay, I'm 38. But I was going to let him say it. Now I'm safe to say it. I'm like, oh, yes.
I'm only 26. What's going on here?
So you're the young buck.
I look so old because I drank so much for so many years. And kids, that's what will happen if you start drinking.
Kids don't drink.
Yeah. So Rosa, tell us, and I must say, we haven't met before. None of us have met Rosa. And I must say, I asked her fiance if he would be on a podcast, and he said no, because he didn't feel comfortable. And then minutes later, he volunteered you. And you guys are still engaged to be married?
Yes.
Even though he volunteered you for a podcast.
It's actually been a dream of mine. I've thought about doing my own podcast before. I just don't know how it works and all that stuff. So for me, it's like a stepping stone. Oh, okay. So I would love to do podcasts and more of them.
Okay. Well, great. We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but let's talk about the ugly first. You dealt with addiction for, how'd you get started? How many years?
So I told you a little bit, like I had been addicted to a lot of different things. I had like a really rough upbringing. And so there was a lot of different things that had played out in my life.
Lots of trauma?
Lots of trauma. I had been molested by my mother's boyfriend. And that was like a huge thing for me. And so like I had acted out in different behaviors, and a lot of it, my addictions were like me acting out in different ways. So I was stealing things, I was doing drugs, I was drinking, I was smoking meth, sniffing meth, pretty much anything under the sun was a good time for me. And what really throughout that whole thing, that something that I had learned about myself was I continued to put myself in those situations throughout my entire life, because the message that I had received when I was a child was, you're not worthy, you're not loved. And it was more of like when that had come out that my mother's boyfriend was molesting me, I had told my mom, and it felt like I was in trouble, like I had been confronted about the situation.
It was your fault.
Yes, very much. And she stayed with him, and so it kind of felt like as if she failed to protect me. And so we had a lot of issues. We had a lot of fights and arguments and disagreements, and a lot of that, it helped to progress my drug addiction and everything else that I was doing. And it wasn't until I was really ready to address all of those underlying issues that I became okay with myself and love myself and start to focus on recovery or healing and fixing those things. So yeah, all of that happened because of those things, like I wasn't ready to address that. And I had plenty of therapy. It was more or less just surface stuff. Like I would talk about things, but only on the surface level, never dive into what was really going on with me and what I was really experiencing and how I was acting out or how I was, I guess, coping with that.
How long did that go on?
With my mom's boyfriend or the drug addiction?
The addiction.
Probably all my life, since the time I was about, I want to say 12, 13, preteen-ish.
Really?
And then I went to prison when I was 21. So that
For-
entire time, I did 5 years in and out. And then before prison, I had done 10 years jail all the time, in and out. Every 6 months, I was in trouble. If I ever made it a day over 6 months with freedom, it was a miracle.
Choice. What?
Drug charges?
Drug charges, theft charges, selling drugs, like middlemanning things, anything, just whatever I could to get by and provide. I also had kids, so it was a very complicated situation. Yeah, and a single mom, so it was like just anything that was available to dabble in to make some money was okay too,
And that lasted for how many years until?
all the way until I was about, I want to say 20, almost 30, so about 28.
So, I'm just 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And was this all done? We always try to find out why people do the things they're doing. Was this all, do you think, to just numb your feelings about what had happened to you earlier?
I not only to numb, but in addition to have like some type of validation of like you're worthy, sharing drugs with people, hanging out with people, or like a bonding situation was more of like a validating feeling for me. Like, hey, we're all having fun. These people like me. They love me, or whatever.
Especially if you have drugs to sell.
Oh yeah, very nice, right? Those situations have caused a lot of damage too, like with friends thinking that, hey, this is how I show love, when in reality I think I was crutching them or hurting them in different ways opposed to really helping.
So why did you finally decide to do something about it?
My last stint in prison, my mom had died. She had always taken care of, like, if I went to jail, my mom would take care of my kids. When I had gotten out, I lost my kids. So I had to fight to get my kids back. And it was kind of like the reality set in. It's like I can't just be like back to business as usual. Now my kids are really like going to face state. Like they could be taken away and kept there. And I haven't necessarily ever been in like a foster home, but I know plenty of people who have, and it wasn't the best environment. And that for me scared the hell out of me. Like my kids could be taken away and they could go through that whole process and I wouldn't be able to protect them. And so I think that when she died, a lot changed for me. It was kind of time to grow up and do what I needed to do.
You just grew up later than most people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And the nice thing about growing up later was I got to experience inpatient, outpatient therapy, and so even though I wasn't ready to change then, all of those tools and all those things that I had got, like skills and coping, that I had received from those programs, they're valid today. They help.
Sure.
They, I just wasn't ready to utilize them in a way that was going to progress me or propel me forward. But now, today, I still remember those tools and I use them and I work through things still today. And it's very helpful regardless of, at what time in my life did I receive it. It's helpful.
We talk to people a lot about, and a lot of our clients have gone through 5, 6, 7 treatment centers, and frequently will bring up the fact, and they will as well, when you ask them to admit it, that, okay, at this place I learned this, and at this place I learned this, even though I wasn't ready to say uncle, and then you remember it, and then it all comes together at some point.
You had mentioned quitting before we started, quitting things like one after, like slowly. So you've been totally sober for how long?
2 years.
But when did you start your journey of sobriety?
Like little by little, is that what you mean? Maybe, I don't really know. It's kind of just like a slow progression. I don't have like a pinpoint time.
What did you quit first?
Drinking was like, not so much like a gateway drug, because maybe I'd smoked marijuana and that was kind of like what started. But I think drinking was a huge one, just because it was so unproductive. You know, waking up with a hangover the next day was just kind of like, well, let's just keep on drinking because I'd rather not deal with this hangover. And then because I'm hungover, I'm not able to do the next best thing because I'm so, pretty much drunk. And it never stopped because I don't want to deal with a hangover.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that I stopped. And then maybe hanging out with friends, certain particular friends, that helped a lot. Stop stealing. Start going to court, start just little things. What I really learned is to just continue to show up, and to just do the best that I can in that moment. Like being responsible, is simple little things, and doing the legwork before it's too late. Because it was really hard to do something about it when I'm in jail. Like I can't set up a court day. I can't do, you know what I mean? I can't do those things on my own time. So it was like a lot easier. Something that I had learned, was to just continue to show up. Things will get easier, and you continue to be responsible about the irresponsible things that we do, really,
Right.
as best as I can.
All the fun things we do that we have to take care of after.
No, that's a very good point. And it's sort of, for you, it was one day at a time with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, little by little. Something that happened that was really funny. My daughter, she's like, Mom, you're really maturing. She's like, when did this happen? And I'm like,
Your daughter said that?
Yeah,
At what age?
I want to say just like last year, we're sitting there having a conversation, and she's like, Mom, you're really maturing. She's like, when did this happen? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe in my 30s, I started to become, more mature. And it is hard. It's all of the things that we've been through, and my kids as well. They go through therapy. I have to show up for them, and we're constantly like navigating on how do we communicate? How do I say sorry? How do I compensate or fix, the things that I've done wrong? But today it's a lot easier to do those things and to say I need help.
How old are your daughters now?
16 and 15, very close in age.
Well, those are tough ages too.
Yes.
And so they've seen you through bad times and now see you in good times.
Yes. It's a huge difference.
And how do you get along now?
We get along really good. I feel like they don't trust me as much as I feel I deserve, but it's not for me to choose, right? But I just continue to show up. And so things in our relationship have gotten a lot better. I feel like they can talk to me about anything and I'm going to be there. They don't always want to talk to me, and I still have so much to work on. Like, because of my upbringing, having it be so dysfunctional, like I'm not always the best person to just come to with the problem, because my own fears and my own things will project onto them. And so when they do come to tell me things, sometimes I'm like, like, oh my gosh, and it's coming from my fear. So it stems from my fear, and I'm worried, like I don't want them to end up in the same situations that I was in. And so I know that they get nervous, and sometimes there are things that they don't tell me. But eventually, like any other mom, I find out, and we have to address it. And sometimes when I need help, then we'll say, okay, well, let's wait till therapy and we'll process it there, because I already know that I'm going to need assistance in navigating how do I say this? How do I accommodate to your needs? How do I ask these questions that are going to validate your feelings? Because I wasn't taught those things growing up.
That is so self-aware, though.
Yeah.
She's a very wise woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if it's generational, but like, I am totally okay with saying that I don't know how to communicate well with my daughter. And we tried a therapy session or two, and we definitely need to go back. But I love that you're doing that for her, because it is hard to talk to teenagers, especially when you hold that guilt and shame from your past. It's a beast.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're doing that.
It's hard to talk to them at that age, even if you're not holding guilt and shame from your past, right?
That's fair. That actually makes me feel better. Yeah.
I'm curious, before your mother died, did you ever settle that issue of her boyfriend molesting you?
No,
Did
unfortunately.
she ever accept it or admit it? Or
Well, no, and I think that's why we struggled so bad was because I mean, I had addressed her, I let her know what was going on, she stayed, and it bothered me. But
sure, it should.
yeah. But ultimately, like she never I understand better now that it was probably hard for her to admit that or to say sorry for that, because it was almost like, if I say sorry, I'm gonna have to take blame. And so she never said sorry, but I accept the fact, like, hey, you're still my mom and I love you. However, this particular thing, and I think I did like what any other kid would do, is like compartmentalize. So kind of put it in this little box and tuck it away. Like, so despite that this has happened and that I don't like it or I'm hurt by it, I continue to love her and allow her to be my mom. But it was like, hey, for this particular thing, I cannot forgive you for it. And I think that a lot of me not being able to forgive her was a lot of it being like she didn't say sorry about it or didn't want to take responsibility for her part. Granted, she didn't, she's not the one who molested me, but I feel like at the point where I told her, like, hey, this is going on, at that point, she carried some fault. Now that she's gone, I think that it's a lot easier to deal with it. It's a lot easier to say, hey, I understand now, you know, like going through my own issues with my kids and being like, that's hard to have to say sorry. And I love my kids and I know that she loved me too. And it's just that it's just a huge responsibility to carry, like pain that you've caused or damage that you've done, especially as a parent.
So you've been totally clean for 2 years, right? Compare your happiness, your brain, your physical situation and everything now compared to when you were still dealing with addiction.
Now I'm able to look at the bigger picture and very fast. When situations arise between any of us, whether it's a disagreement, an argument, a fight, whatever, sometimes even with my extended family, like my dad will come over, things like that. And I'm able to see like, hey, this might escalate. I don't think that I can handle that situation. So let me, draw a line and say, hey, we'll come back to this. In my addiction, I was never able to do that. I was more of like, I just snap and things escalate very quickly. And the next thing you know, I'm in jail or prison because of an emotional distraught state. You know, I acted a lot out of emotions. And then to think that when you're high, your emotions are intensified. And so
And
it was like,
irrational.
yeah, irrational as hell, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference. And I'm glad that I'm sober today, because if I wasn't, I don't really know where my kids would be or where I would be.
Good point.
You started at the VOA, and now you work for USARA, Odyssey.
Yeah, I don't work at VOA anymore, but I loved working at VOA. It really was a humbling experience to see like everything going on, like to just remember like, hey, I have been in this situation, and to be able to help and to come from a place of like passion opposed to like I definitely wasn't there for the money. It wasn't that. It was more of like, hey, I have a purpose here, and I'm able to help, and I'm able to give back. And that's what I was there for. And then now I work at Odyssey and USARA. So USARA during the day, and then Thursday, Friday nights at Odyssey. And I still get that same experience. Like I get to help and give back.
We should sometimes we hear like VOA, and I'll tell people that, and they'll say, well, what's that? It's Volunteers of America, and they run 2 very successful detox programs, one for women, one for men. And you worked with the men. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are just watching out of curiosity, detoxing from addiction to things like opioids is not a pretty sight, and that's a very hard thing to do. And you're going through some of the toughest times of your life. The part you work for USARA is explain that, because I think it's a wonderful, wonderful program.
Yes. So you saw I work on the Arches team. We see people in crisis. I think we have a contract with the state of Utah for the fire department and the police department. If somebody is overdosing, they will give us a call and we'll come out and meet them and offer them resources and hopefully get them on medicated assisted treatment. And then we also see people in the hospitals like the university, IMC, LDS, Holy Cross.
In emergency rooms.
In emergency
For instance,
rooms.
if I overdose and I'm taken to the U of U emergency room,
Right.
you guys come in? Or-
Yes, we will deploy out to the hospital, come and have a conversation with you. If you're not interested in medicated assisted treatment, then we hope that some type of treatment, no matter what it is, because recovery is not linear. Like everybody's going to do it different ways, whatever works for you. And we like to meet people where they're at. So whatever it is that you decide is best for you, then as long as you're doing better today than you were yesterday, then we're all for it. Whatever, like at whatever cost. So we come out, have a conversation with you, meet you, try to normalize, what you're going through because you're not the only one.
I mean, it's not
And we've been-
preachy at all, right? You
No,
don't, you
no.
don't say like, well, you need help.
Oh,
or
no, no.
anything like that.
No, I will typically just share my own story. Like, hey, this is something that I've been through. I've been in this hospital bed. I've been, I've withdrawn. If there was ever a time that was my favorite time, was probably withdrawing in the hospital opposed to at my own home. And just to have that conversation and make a connection with them, I think is really huge. And then again, you get to decide like what your recovery looks like for you, what is best for you, because I don't know you, and you're going to know yourself better than anyone else. So I assume that you have the answer for you. You just have to kind of dig deep for it. And to know that you have help out there, I think is really beneficial. I think that there's been a lot of people that I have helped get into treatment. And I'll help you make the call. I'll sit with you if that's what you need. Options, whatever's going to work for you is what works for us too.
And you have, from what I understand, you have a list of all the possible treatment programs and everything else, and pretty good knowledge of how one treatment program compared to another, and what you're ready for. I like that.
Do you have a lot of success offering Matt or teaching with Matt?
Yes. I want to say we have like 7 people who work with us on the Arches team. We have bridge calls coming in every day. I want to say anywhere from 3 to like 5, which is great. And then we also have somebody who's on call. So after 5 o'clock from 4 all the way till the following morning at 9. So we're constantly getting calls and constantly going out and constantly getting people signed up for medicated assisted treatment. And I think it saves lives.
Explain for people who don't know what it is, medication-assisted treatment.
So either like Suboxone, methadone, Vivitrol. I think there's one,
Sublocade, yeah.
and it just helps you to, for me, like I've said earlier, my best explanation for that is to just be responsible about the irresponsible stuff we're doing. Like when you're craving and you're wanting to do these things, it's so much better to get the medication that you need and to help yourself and to say, hey, this is something that's going to help me to stay sober, to stay clean, to stay off the streets, and to not have to go out and look for these things. And I think that it prevents a lot of overdose, right? And that to me it's the biggest thing. Like you get to be safe in what you're doing. And I think that when we have a second chance at life, that we produce, like we're going to do it if we have that opportunity. And I think that's just, we just need to be offered that opportunity.
What about the argument saying, well, you're just putting somebody on another drug that they're going to be dependent upon?
I've heard that argument, and I've seen and I've had experiences where I felt that way before, to be honest. And I think that my mind had changed when it was somebody that I knew, somebody that was close to me. I had a friend who I wanted to help her through her addiction, and she stayed with me. And to see her go through that, like to come from a place of love and concern, like, hey, I know you better than this. And I know you can do better. And I think that was huge for her. Because she typically had like somebody nagging at her, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I know that it comes from a place of concern because it's her mom. She loves her. She wants her to do better. But it was more of like, I see you and I know you can, like, I've seen you. You're a great mom. You're capable. You go to school. You do all these great things in life, but this addiction that you have is hindering you. And to come at her from that different, like a different perspective and a place of genuine love, and I know that she can do better. So when I told her that, I think that it changed for her, and then she got on medicated assisted treatment. And I just seen her whole entire life change. So even though she's on something that people may see as, just something else that you're putting in your body, it's a healthy amount. She knows what she's getting. It's not being cut with fentanyl. It's not being cut with xylazine. She's, you know what I mean? It's safe and secure. And she utilized it in a way that helped her whole life and her kids as well, because now they're not dealing with all of her baggage that comes along with her addiction.
Right. And I was just playing devil's advocate. I agree with you entirely, but I hear that argument frequently. Let me ask you an off-the-wall question. You are engaged to be married to somebody else who is also in recovery.
Yes.
I was always told that I guess you're sort of in early recovery at 2 years. I don't know. I was always told that you should wait several years before you hook up with somebody who is also dealing with the same issues you are.
I think that it is hard, and I totally agree. There's a lot of things that I've seen too, where people hook up in treatment or hook up after treatment.
Right.
I think that Jareth is about 6 years into recovery, which is great. But I also like the fact that he's not a normie. It makes it easier to relate. It makes it easier to understand like what it is that I'm going through or experiencing. And we do a lot of like, it's not necessarily like therapy, but we talk and we process and we know like how to get through those things, right, together. And I think that having the open communication sets us up for success. I don't think that, like, we're not perfect and we still have issues, but I think that going through therapy, both of us, going through treatment, having both skills and knowledge of those things that we're going to experience and hurdles that are going to come up, that we are able to talk about it and to talk about it in an open, honest way that's just raw.
Do you guys also have some pretty good boundaries?
We have good boundaries. I feel like we talk about whatever issues it is that we're having, work through them, set a boundary like, hey, this is what works for me and this is how I communicate, and if you want to get through to me, this is how I need it. And if you could do that, and then I can do this way, how for you. We've looked at how our love languages, how our attachment styles are, things like that, and we've just shared and talked and figured things out. And
That's awesome.
I know, right?
Cozy with your girls.
Oh my gosh, so good. So the girls love him. I think they sometimes prefer him. He's like one of them. But they love him. And I'm so glad, because sometimes I felt like I'm not the best like judgment and character for men. That was like an issue for me. So when they chose him before I had chose him was like victory. Yeah, so they really liked him. They really enjoyed him. They approve of him. They talk to him. He's actually going to school to do his SUDC, so he's almost done. And I think that that's another beneficial thing that we have going for our relationship, because he knows how to talk and how to kind of get to the underlying issues, not just with me, but with the girls too. And he has a daughter too, who has just moved in with us about 4 months ago. And so co-parenting, mommy-daughter dates, him-daughter dates too. It's just really nice.
And a still-seeing man.
Yeah.
He's a substance abuse disorder counselor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Believe it or not, our time is up. It goes very quickly. I thank you for your honesty, and thank you for sharing your story.
Did you like podcasting?
I loved it.
Okay.
Good.
I'm going to do it again.
Good. Thank you, Rosa.
You're welcome.
Good to see you, Nicole.
You too.
And thank you for listening or watching to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.